Morning. We're in Wisbech. It's dawn. Joe is up there somewhere walking George, trying to get the last of his poops out. He's been fed, although he's a little bit nervous, so he hasn't eaten the whole thing. There they are. They seem to be coming down the stairs there. But yeah, it's 6:30. I've warmed up the boat. The engine's all prepped and ready. The oil check's done and everything. The boat is prepared. We've emptied out spaces to make it so that there's room for everybody to stand. We've cleaned everything up. We've prepared everything up. We've got breakfast already made, but we've got no pilot yet. So we're just waiting on him. He did say he'd be around here round about now, and round about now is when it's time to start thinking about getting going. The tide is still going that way. We need to take the tide out that way. Yeah, so shortly we'll be prepared to go. We will be on our way. It's just dawn and seagulls and a dog that is lighter than he was before, though he's still decided to anchor. Sounds good. So we ran into a few technical difficulties with the audio. So we're not going to have much audio or any audio from most of the trip here. But we're going to do a little voiceover reaction type thing, because I don't know what else we were going to do. So here's me doing the ever so important tying on.
I like the way that you tie it on.
Yeah, and then it becomes untied.
He immediately unflips it.
Yeah.
And ties it on the way he wants.
Well, yes, that's the thing. People got to do, Daryl knows how he wants to control the boat. I know how I want to control the boat. And the whole reason why I don't usually do this rope turn trick is because when I'm standing on the back of the boat, I can't hear anything being yelled at me by anybody at the front. They can't hear me properly. And so it ends up being really hard to coordinate. Now I can't see. You can see how the rope's pulling across like that?
Yeah.
I can't see where you are at all. So I don't know if you're being squished or cut in half by a rope or what, right? So I'm actually pretty worried during this.
Was the river not wide enough for us to turn without going into the little...
Well, he was a little bit worried. Like, realistically, I could have done this without the rope turn.
Yeah.
The rope turn just helps us make it so that we're not in any kind of risk, because you can see that the water's moving upstream still.
Yeah.
So that there's no risk of me kind of
going
losing
sideways. Contact
with the pier going sideways.
Yeah. So did you just use the flow of the water to turn you rather than steer?
No, I was using the engine.
Right.
But yeah, it was like, it's a pretty straightforward maneuver. It's just that by having the rope tied on, there's a pivot point.
Yeah.
Right? So we didn't want to damage any of the other boats, obviously, so it's useful to have that pivot point, but you can sort of see that the only place it actually does anything is right there for a second, because it's a little bit slack here.
So it's just kind of like an insurance, really, that rather than
pretty
something
much
we actually needed.
Yeah. And so...
And the reason that we were facing the wrong way is because when we arrived the day before, it's safer to moor when you're approaching... like when you're not riding the tide, when you're
well, we were coming downstream, so if I'd tried to pull over and moor here, I'd have had to be reversing the whole time, and there's the possibility of sort of slamming into the dock and moving forward. By turning around back into the flow, I'm able to approach like I am right now,
really
at a crawl, totally controlled, and everybody's able to just jump on and jump off.
Yeah.
Like right now I'm going to move over and let Daryl get on at the back.
I think, you're right, it was overkill, but it's better to be safe than...
Yeah. So you can see the electricity pylon. That access to the pylon is incorporated in the price of your rental, but actually using it, you got to pay for a card, so we didn't do that. It's pretty straightforward, though, at Wisbech. Like, you basically just rock up, and you've got to call them ahead of time to let them know that you're coming, but then you pretty much just rock up, spin around, moor up, walk up to the office, which was that funny thing that looked kind of like a sort of
sail or something.
Like a aircraft carrier sail, and then you get somebody called down, and you fill out a form and pay your £2.50, I think it is, per meter, with a discount for narrowboats that are over 11 meters. It's a bit complicated, so we ended up paying basically £36.
I mean, it's a lot for a night, but
it's a lot for a night. But you've got laundry facilities, water. It's locked up. and you've got those nice dolphins and everything.
And I guess if you moor for longer than like a week or whatever, then the price is scaled.
Oh yeah. There's like a yearly discount and a weekly discount and stuff. So like it's really only bad if you're staying up for a couple of days. So
this is now new territory. We've been as far as Wisbech before, but not on this section.
Basically, from Wisbech to, I think it's Sutton Bridge, is like 8 miles of more or less just straight.
So we've been going maybe half an hour, 40 minutes. I think we're halfway from Wisbech to Sutton Bridge, which is very peaceful so far. We waited for the tide to turn. It was coming in all morning and it was very high at Wisbech. And now, I guess we're riding the water back out. So there's the port of Wisbech just as we leave, and ships do actually come that far. I think when we were here before, there were some quite big ships there. Yeah,
well, Wisbech is like a fairly busy harbour and has been for a long time. There's actually a little Fenlands and Wisbech Harbour Museum in the town there. That's it's really quite neat to go into that little museum because there's all this stuff that's come over from like China, Japan. There's like waves of time in which they were doing like cotton and they were doing wood. They were one of the busiest ports in the country for wood coming over for use in shipping and stuff. It's that omelette that I didn't get to try yet. Yeah, so nice.
There's a couple of channels that drain into the Nene here. This one is called South Holland Drain, and it's got quite a large sluice where it joins the Nene.
So yeah, there's the swing bridge.
We've actually been going for about an hour by this stage, and it's called Cross Keys Bridge. But
Cross Keys Bridge.
I thought it was Sutton Bridge, but Sutton Bridge is the town.
Yeah. No, that's Cross Keys Swing Bridge, and you have to book ahead to swing the bridge.
But luckily we fit under.
Well, pretty much any narrowboat doesn't fit under there. You've got some problems with your narrowboat. It's a huge swing bridge, and you can book ahead to swing the bridge if you've got a sailboat that's tall enough. I would think most can probably fit through with a mast that comes down, but if you've got a mast you can't tilt or something, then you'd have some problems.
This is actually the only crossing between Wisbech and the Wash, so it's a bit of a
traffic bottleneck. Yeah, and it's a bottleneck for the big boats too. You can see all these little cruisers over here. That's the Cross Keys Marina. Yeah, fundamentally, like, this is the thing with this section out to the Wash, is it's really just a long straightaway. You were really nervous because you're always nervous on rivers and everything. Yeah. But this really is just a long straight drain. So there's nothing to think about doing. There's nothing to worry about doing. There's no, the flow is sedate at the worst of times.
Yeah, because when we did the Wash last time 3 years ago, and we came into King's Lynn, between King's Lynn and Denver, where we got to moor, it's not straight.
No.
And within the not straight, there's the deep channel.
There's deep channels and there's curves, and there is some on, if you were to take from the Wash all the way up to Dog and a Doublet, you've got more to worry about, because as you go through Wisbech itself, the channel narrows, there's mud on both sides that's built up, and you're going to speed up and go through some curves all the way up to basically Guyhern.
But the way we did it on the right tides for the navigating.
Yeah, so fundamentally it's really pretty simple. You leave as the tide begins to ebb out, and you leave Wisbech, and it's a really sort of manicured channel. Basically, the thing is that as you're coming out of this one, if there's no shipping traffic, it's a boring cruise.
This is that was a really very big winding hole there for the ships that come to the port of Sutton Dock, which I think has been there for a very long time, and it's obviously still in use because we've got something getting unloaded here. Did you see what they were unloading? No. To tell you the truth, I was probably too busy with the conversation with Daryl and didn't even see the boat. Didn't you?
Yeah.
I was really excited to see the crane. I don't know why. It's just quite an unusual view, I think.
Yeah, no, I was vaguely aware that there was the pier there, but yeah, no, I wasn't paying much attention to the boat.
I don't know. I guess I just like to see these docks in use.
See, this is the funny thing, is like at the back, almost all of my concentration is don't hit anything. Right? Like just basically don't ram anything. And I'm like, I'm doing a good job. I'm not ramming that boat. That's the only thing I'm paying attention to.
And they did it so fast. Like while we were approaching, the crane swung. Like there, you can see it.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I guess this is one of the things is like, because I spent so much time in Vancouver near the harbor there.
Well, that's like, much busier dock.
Well, yeah, and it's like major cargo containers and everything. So watching bulk carriers, like this is a small bulk carrier.
Yeah.
You know, like that was small. A big bag of probably rubble or could have been any number of things.
But I also like the way you can see the end that they've unloaded and the end that they've still got to unload, because the boat's sitting at quite a angle. Yeah, it's like really.
Yeah, and there's actually a whole, you know, kind of science that goes to loading and unloading these things so you don't overweight them.
The truck taking.
Yeah, but see how those are basically just big rubble sacks?
Yeah.
Right. So this is a bulk carrier full of who knows what. It could be recycled metal ball bearings. It could be bits of plastic. It could be garbage. It could be gravel. You've got this, like, basically that great big red thing there is essentially just a bunch of walls.
Yeah.
And those panels on the side there that are on the right-hand side, they are the roof, and they'll crank over and drop down, and then that keeps the rain out of it. But effectively, you've got this great big thing that is a huge bathtub that you load up with
whatever you want.
Whatever you want. You know, you get them in Vancouver, so you'll get, like, here's a bulk carrier that carries nothing but sulfur, right? And then you get other ones where it's like that with the bags, where it's kind of whatever people want to pay to get hauled from place to place.
Yeah.
Then you get the large carriers that are like containerized shipment.
Yeah, the ones you're used to seeing. They're just, the containers don't even get open. They're just...
Yeah, they're just being moved around based on, you know,
they go straight
really just kind of QR codes and curious cattle watching. That's always fun.
So the tide's...
George watching curious cattle.
The tide's going out now. We're basically riding the tide out.
Yeah.
And you can see on the banks, like, how much mud's exposed, to see how far it's dropped since we've been leaving, like maybe hour and a half by this point, I imagine.
Yeah, and we're basically running at tide speed.
Okay, here, did you know that there was 2 lighthouses? Or did you even see a lighthouse?
Yeah, that's the lighthouse on the right there.
Yeah, there's one there on the left.
Didn't notice the one on the left.
No, I didn't. And I found out that the one on the right is the East Bank Lighthouse, and it's called the Sir Peter Scott Lighthouse, after the painter and naturalist that lived there for like 3 years before.
Sir Peter Scott Lighthouse?
Yeah.
Oh, his name is Sir Peter Scott. No. And that's his lighthouse.
Yeah.
The painter Sir Peter Scott Lighthouse.
Is that what it said?
Well, it's...
And it's also a holiday home now, so I had a look online, and you can book it out, and it was quite interesting.
Oh, it'd be a neat kind of Airbnb sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the idea of staying in a lighthouse.
But the other one's a private residence, and I couldn't really find out much about it. But
I like the idea of living in a lighthouse right up until you think about
rescuing a ship.
Yeah, just like somebody. No. Mainly, it's not so much the rescuing the ship thing. It's that effectively what you've got is a chimney that's got a light at the top, and renovating those things is probably harder than renovating a narrowboat.
Yeah, the curves.
It's just all circled.
So we saw some our first seals of the day here, sunbathing on the sandbank.
Yeah,
always exciting.
I think there was a sign of one underneath the water just a second ago.
Oh, was there?
Yeah.
I tried to spot them in the edit, but like in the water, but I couldn't, because we saw loads just swimming around during the day.
For the most part, what you see is a black dot, and then occasionally like a bit of bubbles.
So that we just passed was called Big Tom, and there's Big Annie on the west bank, and they're the beacons.
It's kind of a rude thing to say about the seals.
No, it's the beacon, not the seal.
Oh, the beacons.
And they mark the entrance to the Nene.
Okay. Well, there's Enormous Joe, and Thunderous Fart Annie, and
It's very rude.
It's not really. I don't know the name seals give to you. Oh, look at that guy going. That's a really fast one.
Looks like a slug.
I'm out of here.
Oh, there's one swimming.
Yeah, there's one in the river with us. Apparently out searching for the ever popular cockles of the wash. Oh, so there we go. There's your navigation channel. Red on the right, green on the left. So that's green on port and red on starboard while you're going out.
So there's the island I was saying. Did you not see that when we were going?
No, I noticed it. I didn't know that's the donut.
Yeah, so apparently it's got an official name, I can't remember what it is, but it's locally known as the Donut. And it was part of, it's that Outer Trial.
Outer Trial Bank.
And it's an artificial island that was constructed in the 1970s.
Well, they were thinking about doing like a tidal barrage and then trying to conserve the fresh water coming out the rivers, which in the future it might kind of become clear that they probably should have done that, but it was...
At the time they decided it was
financially unfeasible.
Yeah.
So we're out in the wash, and we're in the channel. There's a dog leg that we have to do. So we passed through some boys back there, and there's another pair coming up. And it's fairly simple for me. I mean, it's like look for the next largest set of buoys and go between those two. Green on the left, red on the right. And yeah, but you can see it here, like we go forward these two and then we've got to turn over and then come back and then we've got to turn over and go out. So it's like a double dog leg, which I should draw more like that. It was nice to see the seals. I think we're going to be surrounded by a bunch of sand fairly soon because with the polarized lenses I can sometimes get a glimpse of it being actually quite shallow in places. Further out, like beyond the buoys. Oh, little seal.
And how do you feel about your stowaway?
Well, I mean, once I learned about the stowaway, now I'm like, let's get the stowaway over to Boston and see how it adjusts. Oh, that's a very small seal. Oh, just went under. Yeah, the dogleg, it's really quite interesting how, you just don't really think about it. But the river's cut out a channel that goes deeper and deeper into the wash. And essentially, it's just the continuation of the river. But the river's hidden underneath the surface. So you've got the Welland, the Glen, the Witham, the Welland and the Glen combined to the River Welland. So then you've got the Welland, and I think it's called the Haven, coming out in the north near Boston. And then you've got the channel coming out of Kings Lynn and the channel coming out of Wisbech. And the Wisbech channel has just, over time, continued to extend this dogleg. So you've got to go out further north and then come back. The old Wisbech channel used to go kind of in a straight line. But now the new Wisbech channel just eventually formed this dogleg, and eventually the dogleg will either reconnect to the old Wisbech channel, or cut itself off in some other fashion, and these things will have to change. And that's why the buoys have to be tended and moved year by year and set up different channels. But when you're actually out there, here we are, a 57-foot by 7-foot thing, navigating a channel meant for something a couple 100 feet long by 50 feet wide.
And you can see from there like how we've curved around because we were now heading back directly at the island.
Yeah, facing the donut. Which I was really just concentrating on not ramming again, so I didn't really think about much other than just don't hit the donut. Don't hit these guys. Oh, there's Bob.
Appropriate name for a boy.
They've each got their name, but I think that's the only one I got close enough to see the name.
Oh, we passed Charlie a minute ago. But I didn't realise at the time, but you can actually see the location of the buoys on the chart, which makes sense.
Yeah, well, you're supposed to, like we have a pilot and he has a chart in his...
So he knows exactly where...
He knows what they all are and where they all are.
Because we had the pilot.
We didn't have our own chart hanging
No,
out
we
there.
kind of didn't.
Because otherwise I would have been looking for Bob.
We didn't. We just relied on him.
It's kind of neat, though. You can look up the charts online and sort of follow your own journey.
Yeah. You probably can't see it, but there's a little speck on the horizon, which is a buoy, and that's what we're heading for at the moment. We've just left the channel, and it is so calm. I don't know if it's going to get worse as we get further out, but compared to the last time we were in the wash, this is like just beautifully smooth and calm, and of course I'm still nervous, but you can barely see the horizon, like the water's so flat.
Oh yeah, and the haze low down. It's funny because again, this is a positional thing. Like me standing on the back, I had no problem knowing where the horizon was, but then here you just drop down a couple of feet and it's like Yeah, and like, look at this, you can't see the horizon at all.
But the last time we crossed the wash, we had to go out into deeper water, and we hit some waves. But this time...
This is the shot in which people are saying that the Earth is not, that the Earth is flat, obviously, because there's no curve that you can see.
No. But it's so flat this time, compared to last time. Last time I promised George we'd never do it again, and I lied, because here we are doing it again.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was smooth enough, and we were low enough on wind that all the bugs were landing on me.
Yeah, that was a bit miserable.
I mean, they weren't biting or anything, but it's just like there's a lot of insects and butterflies flying out and stuff that you wouldn't even normally notice if there was a slight breeze.
Yeah.
But there was really no wind whatsoever, which was like really quite lucky for us in terms of there being no bounce or chop or anything. But it meant that we were beset by flies and it little nits and stuff.
Almost dull by comparison, because we didn't have any chop. Once we'd left the channel buoys, Daryl then spotted it would just look like a dot on the horizon to head for, but he obviously knew what direction to go in, and we started aiming for that buoy. His
vision for the buoys is so much, like he can pick them out so much earlier than I can.
Yeah.
He's got a pair of binoculars if he needs them. And to be fair to myself, there was a couple of times there was at least one time where he pointed me at something and then eventually said, "Oh, I think that was actually a boat, not a buoy." But because he's really eagle-eyed and he sees these things so quick, and it's like, okay, point in that direction. I'm like, okay, so I'm following his finger, and I'm like, yeah, I got no idea what I'm aiming at, but I'll see it eventually, and then it's like, oh, okay, now I can actually keep that thing in track. Because the other problem, Thurl and I were talking about it. Of course, I've got the color blindness issue.
Oh, this is the one that you didn't.
Yeah, this is the one where I came around with it on our starboard side when it really should have been on our port side.
Because they were too busy talking.
Daryl didn't kind of correct me, so I aimed straight at the buoy instead of...
And it got carried by the tide.
Yeah. So that's me getting chastised and corrected.
He didn't chastise you, just explaining. It was quite interesting.
Because the tide is setting you across, you've gone directly to it, and what it's done is it's taken you around in a big arc.
You know, because he got me lined up for the next one, and
we could actually see the boat kind of being pushed by the tide, but moving in a different direction.
And it was a lot easier for me because you can't really see it in this shot, but it is there, directly in front of us right now, just over the GoPro camera sitting at the front, is the boat that we're aiming for, and that's about how easy it is to see on the horizon for me at the back too. It's definitely not the easiest thing to do, but what he eventually got me to realize was that if I had two objects, then I could track at one of them, keep it in front of me, keep the relationship between them, and then we would be pointed into the current, but moving directly towards the two objects. So we would be on kind of collision course with the object. So that was the whole point, was to allow me to make it so that I can make the most direct transit instead of essentially going a much longer distance by pushing into the oncoming tide.
So kind of moving sideways in effect.
Yeah, well, crabbing. You know, it looks like we're aiming sort of 10 degrees off of the direction we're actually traveling in.
To allow for the movement of the water.
Yeah, we're pushing into the tide a little bit and then making a more direct motion. So it's you know, every time I go out there with Daryl, I've got this like sense of there's this whole world of navigation that I've never picked up on, and that I'm really quite impressed by. You know, it's like when I was a kid and I was working for this guy Andy that you met last year when we traveled to Canada, and Andy was a submariner with the Royal Navy back in the 50s and 60s, and some of his stories about like how those guys navigate inside of a tube you can't see anything whatsoever, and they're just using a stopwatch and charts, and I'm just like,
amazing.
Well, it's amazing and also kind of foolhardy, right? Like, it's like, do I really want to do that? Do I trust that my engine is doing what I think it's doing? You know,
because of the underwater channels and the sandbanks, you obviously don't do a direct route from the Nene to the Wigan.
No, because otherwise you end up like that sailboat over there, sitting on the shore.
They were having a picnic, and I don't know if they were having a picnic. They were sat on the sandbank, and we decided they were having a picnic, and they were waving at us.
They were on lounge chairs, but it's a neat boat because you can see that it's got two keels, so it's really designed for beaching up.
They're kind of like feet.
Yeah, well, because like an ocean-going a sailing boat would have a single keel usually, right, to give you the best kind of stability. But if you tried to beach up like that, you'd end up flopping over. So they just beached up, got off, and went and sat in some lounge chair. Wish I could have gotten the names of these things as we went past. But kind of wish I'd had a pair of binoculars, except for I'm pretty sure that if I looked through a pair of binoculars at a buoy while traveling sideways to it as we are now, I'd vomit within seconds.
So we're now travelling towards the north bank of the Wash and kind of aiming halfway between Boston and Skegness, rather than kind of, you know, the direct route that we couldn't take. And it's
well, we had to go to get into the channel. We had to go almost all the way to the North Beaches, because the channel coming down the Haven, the Witham and the Haven, the Witham, I'm not sure.
It's the Haven.
Yeah, it's the Haven at that point, which the Witham joins with and then comes up. But anyway, that river channel pretty much goes along the north side of the Wash all the way out to the sea.
Oh, and here's what caused the most exciting moment of the day.
Yeah. It was funny because I was really quite surprised to see him off our port side. Because I'd seen him and another boat. I think they were fishing, like doing small scale fishing and possibly cockling or something. Anyway, those there were two boats back there, and they were quite a ways back. And then Daryl and I are chatting, and then I looked to my left, and whoop, there he is. The one boat had stopped, and then the other one was coming in. They were quite powerful things, and he threw up quite a bit of a wake. Here comes
like,
the great wave off Kanagawa here. This is our.
And you I was at the front, and you suddenly started veering off to.
Well, I was just going to turn into it. And so we didn't end up in the trough.
We didn't even feel it, to be honest.
No, but at the same time, this is the sort of thing that you make woodcuts in Japan in the 1600s, right? It's like, there we go. There's our
tiny little splash.
There's the great wave off of Boston.
So it's about 12:20 by this point. So we've been going
quite a few hours.
We left at 7, so 8.
And we're
5.5 hours.
It's fascinating.
I just carried on moving.
You guys don't get to watch Jo doing her arithmetic.
Along here there's a huge sandbank to the right. I think it was called Rogers Sand, but I'm not sure.
There's huge sandbanks to the right of them. There's huge sandbanks to the left of them. There's huge sandbanks in front of them.
We can't always see them, but that one we could see.
The charge of the sand brigade is what I'm alluding to here. That's the funny thing about the Wash is unless you can look at it through kind of a satellite photo that ignores the water, you don't realize just how much of this is really shallow with a few very deep channels in it. And we're in one of those channels. And we actually probably could do quite a bit of this without worrying about anything because we're a couple of feet deep, right? Yeah. But there's huge portions of the Wash where we'd be able to go out there, jump off the side, and not go below our hips.
Yeah.
So yeah, those channels are really important to anything that's got any draft whatsoever. Because this thing is so shallow and so flat, big waves can't develop, but you can definitely get a kind of high frequency chop that'll make you sick pretty quick. We definitely benefited from having essentially no waves at all until the very end. It was very comfortable.
Oh, and this is where it's kind of what I've been waiting for all day.
Yeah.
Yes. And I was so excited I didn't really film much of us getting off the boat.
Well, basically, he we kind of got to the point where Daryl's like, okay, we're getting into low tide. And so there's going to be this window of opportunity to beach up. And
we had to wait for the tide to be the right time at the lock at Boston.
Yeah. Well, like you don't really have any reason to beat the lock up because the Boston lock usually has to be traveled through at the level. So usually you want to arrive in Boston really right as the tide's going to level, because that's what's going to let you go through in either direction. You want to be leaving on the level and you want to be arriving on the level. So yeah, there's no reason to arrive early, and so beaching up is the way you.
Was it strange just kind of aiming for the land?
No, I've done it before, accidentally and intentionally. Usually on a canal. This is how we've just come to a complete halt because it's a really small grade change between where we are and where that is. So here's the 2 foot deep portion, and that goes to inches and millimeters deep.
And George would not get off the boat. He was terrified, which is crazy because he can't get enough of the, like if he approaches the sea from the beach, he loves it, and he's jumping through a river. But
he likes to be able to see what he's going to land on, and when he looks down onto the water, he balks because it's like, I can't see what's below it.
yeah,
And he doesn't know that the flotation device that he's got on will solve his problem for him.
he doesn't like going out of his jump. So
But that's why that's why I got to carry him in. Just walking with my big sausage
I wish you
of a
turned
dog
around at this
in-
point because
Yeah.
it just looks so funny.
Felt pretty funny. And the whole time, he doesn't like me carrying him up escalators or anything, and he'll squirm. But this time he's just like, no, I am not squirming. I am a happy little clam. Just carry me in.
And the
Right up until I get to the point where he sees sand. And then he's like, let me go, let me go, let me go.
I've never seen such a happy dog. Like he loves the beach. I wish we could take him to the beach more often.
Yeah.
He,
It's just so funny. Like, as soon as I've got him down, he just goes to, like, full, I call it pig and shits mode. Like, he's just the happiest little guy, and he's just running around. He's so excited, and he's just, like, picking up on the excitement. And, yeah, he was just enjoying it.
so happy.
Yeah.
So happy just splashing around.
I mean, he's 13, and he's...
Looks about 3.
Well, he's 13, and he's definitely slowing down at this point.
Not at this point.
But not at this point. He's just, like okay, there's the fact that he can't really hear as well as he used to and everything, and he's got a little bit more kind of needing to sleep during the day. But he is just running around like he's back being the little puppy we met when we got him.
Tail wagging makes me so happy.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, we're a bit obsessed by our dog.
Well, and also, like, for us, this was the first time of just walking around barefoot with feet in the sand in quite a long time.
I can't tell you how magical it is getting off your narrowboat into the sandbanks.
Yeah, see, there's all this, people who we talk to all the time are like, you're so brave to cross the wash, or something similar, right? Like, I wouldn't do that, I wouldn't feel safe. And it's like, you know what? The reality is, if you've got a little bit of clear weather, the Wisbech to Boston to Wisbech route is really not a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
You want to pilot because there's a navigational challenge. It can be challenging if the weather goes bad. But if the weather doesn't go bad, and you've got that window of opportunity, so you need a little bit of flexibility either side.
Just if the weather looks like it's going bad, just don't go.
Yeah, but if you're lucky with the weather, then this is a low stress thing to do, and it is absolutely magical.
How's the crossing been?
The crossing's been fine, and the beaching was fun. We're standing in the water, in the ocean, in the wash. We're getting washed by the wash at the moment, which is quite cool. George is sopping wet and has just decided that it's time to crouch down in the water, so he's even getting more washed than we are.
I don't think he enjoyed the
Crossing? No. And you didn't get a shot of it, but like I had to like carry him across because he's like, I'm not jumping in, that's insane. And then I carry him over, put him down, and he's like, oh, I get it now. I remember this.
Well, you're going to have to carry him back wet.
I know. Problem is we don't have soft serve to give him, so he's probably like, oh, I have memories of something better. It's good fun. I'm glad I got off this time.
Me too.
Both of the times we've been out onto the wash have been magical.
Like literally joyful this part is.
Yeah,
Like,
just outright joy. Like this is one of those, you get there and you're standing there and you're like, how many people get to do this in a lifetime? This is one of those things you live for.
yeah.
And like I cannot recommend doing the crossings enough.
And we can't recommend Daryl enough. Like,
Oh yeah.
Such a nice guy.
Yeah.
And makes you feel so safe.
Yeah. And he likes kimchi now. So
Well, that was the funny thing. When we got back on the boat, we still had about another half an hour to an hour to wait. So Michael introduced Daryl to kimchi and ginger.
yeah, kimchi and sushi
that.
ginger. Yeah.
You threw the ball there, and George didn't want to go out because.
Well,
Oh, look at him!
He's in the shallow bit, and I threw it a little bit deeper.
Looks like you're just walking on water.
Yeah.
He's lost the ball there.
He'll find it. But yeah, Daryl took to the kimchi.
There you go.
And also, I'm like the only person I know that takes Korean kimchi and combines it with Japanese
Ginger.
sushi ginger, and and he's like, oh, that's what makes it. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the whole point. No, it's like, that's what I'm saying, is it's like, it's totally worth doing this. It is confusing to watch the camera do that, but...
well, I might edit that out.
Well, I think you shouldn't, because that's... This is the moment at which Joe's inner ear stopped funcking.
No, I said this is for like social media.
And George went sideways.
I said this is the rough edit, not the...
No, fair enough. But I still think you should include this one, because it's really funny. Yeah, no, see, the thing with doing this is, it really is one of the highlights of 7 years of narrowboating, right? Like, this is a highlight of a life.
And I'm not against doing it again.
No, yeah, and the route we took before, through to King's Lynn from Boston, that's the more challenging route, because it's like when I talk to people about the Thames, I'm like, go out of Limehouse and go up to Teddington, not the other way, because if you go Limehouse to Teddington, you're compressing the stressful bit into the beginning, and then you've got... You just enjoy it. Right? And there's the crab that I found. He's a little soft-shelled, leathery crab. Quite perturbed to have been pulled out of the water, I'm sure, but I'm very gentle. He's like, I'm gonna die! And I'm like, no, you're not.
There's George. Like, we're getting ready to get back on the boat, and George is just like, I can't get there.
I can't get there.
I'm really annoyed this was out of focus.
Yeah, it's too bad. But, there's me bringing to George. Now it comes into focus, doesn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
He has his hand on my junk.
There's my George. Made it on
covered in sand.
But he was so happy up until that point.
Yeah. Here's you being really athletic, about to jump back on.
I don't think I'm being all that athletic.
Oh, you had to lift me up.
Well, that's true. Yeah. Okay, so you're less athletic than me.
Well, I think you're just taller, so you had less to...
Yeah, my biggest worry was putting my foot down on that, the chain or something. Like, I really didn't want to put it on the wrong place. So then we pulled back pretty quickly and rotated around. It's kind of fun because the wind was trying to push us back into the sand, so I had to kind of fight that. But you can see actually this little tiny bit of chop.
Yeah.
That's because as we were sitting there on the sand, the wind picked up. Not a lot at all, but here's this little bit of chop. And we were going straight into it, so it's basically nothing.
Oh, right? There's our boat need painting.
Yes. If anybody wants to cover a paint job, we're happy to take donations on a paint job, and especially donations of time applying paint on a paint job.
And so there ahead, that's the entrance to the haven, and I think just to the left of that left-hand one is the
Welland.
Oh yeah, you can see it there. There's the Welland.
Yeah, so the very most left-hand one there is the outermost marker for both. Then there's that channel with the second marker kind of the middle of the screen. That's the Welland.
Yeah, and then we're
heading up the haven,
which leads to the Welland,
to Boston.
So it's about 2:30 in the afternoon now. So I'm not going to count how many hours that will be because Michael will just laugh at me. But maybe he could tell us how many hours that is.
From what time did we leave in the morning?
7.
So 7 would be 7 hours.
7.5 hours we've been going now.
7.5 hours. There's me trying not to count in my head. I'm like, why did
you missed them with the cogs turning.
So here's the crow's nesty thing.
Dolly Peg and Tab's head.
Yeah, that thing. When I first saw it, I'm like, is that like a buried ship's crow's nest or something? Like, what is it? But no, it's just a beacon to make it really quite clear that if you're approaching at night, you know where the heck you are. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see this at night. Like,
oh gosh.
Yeah, like all these things would be lit up, and what you'd be using was the lights of the channel markers and everything, right? Yeah. So like I would be quite interested to see, you know, what the nighttime version looks like.
What's that little brick building?
I've no idea. It is a small brick building, and yet another one of the things that I wasn't paying attention to because what I was trying to do was not hit the sand.
You say that, but you were mainly just chatting with Daryl, like.
Yes, while pointing us at the middle of the channel.
We've been going 7.5 hours, and you and Daryl have been talking for 7.5 hours.
Yeah, I did end up with a pretty sore throat at the end of this from all the chatting.
And we're riding the tide up now, right?
Yeah, and there's the rare Lincolnshire bicycles.
So that is the Hob Hole Sluice, and that is obviously the Hob Hole drain, which links back up to, I think it's Maud Foster drain, with the navigable drains.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. So that's the outflow of the Maud Foster. eventually.
Eventually, yeah. Well, it's all linked. Oh, and there's the stump in the distance, which is...
The sign you're getting into Boston is St. Botolph's, the stump of Boston. And yeah, there's the thing telling us that the Tidal barrage is up ahead. And
there's the stump ahead.
But this is where sort of the Pilgrim Fathers... I always find it funny that they call them the Pilgrim Fathers. I think of it more as the invaders.
Yeah. And, sorry, this is just Boston Port. Carry on.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's for the big boys. Not for narrowboats over there. But, yeah, so basically we're approaching the Boston Barrier, which is quite an impressive structure. I guess for a very long time, Boston could be quite seriously flooded.
I wonder how often it...
Well, it gets tested several times a year. I think it's like once a month it has to be tested, and so they raise it and drop it. So there's a... over at Boston Lock, there's a paper that says the dates. But essentially, you can see those kind of big hydraulic pistons, and really this thing just closes a giant piece of clockwork, and a big rolling barrier comes into place. And it would be quite neat to watch it in action.
Not from the water between it, though.
Maybe a little ways off. That's the Black Sluice over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the tidal barrier, before it was put into place, I guess there was an enormous amount of erosion in this section, from the Black Sluice all the way up to Boston.
Right.
And it was quite severely flooding into the streets and stuff, and that's why you can find places where there's flood barriers and everything that seem to have gone out of usage now that the barrier's there.
Port of Boston looking very sad. And this swing bridge is no longer in action, right?
No, I think it can still... I think it's out of action right now, but I think it can be swung. There is still an operating business on the right-hand side that did use this bridge. Yeah, these are all the cockle boats to our on our port side here, and you can see the rain kicking in. So that's what these guys do, is they go out and they fish for cockles. They put down traps, I guess, and they've got every one of the boats has a little sort of articulated arm up the back that's used for hauling them out. I guess this fishing fleet used to be huge here, and now it's
still quite a few boats.
There is, but you know, back in the day, there would have been, like at the market, you would have been able to buy all this fresh seafood and everything now, and now it's like the market shows up and it's mainly, you know, I went to the market yesterday and there's some lovely baked goods and things and there's some nice fruit, but the majority of what's in the market is not
from the fishing
fish. It's an auction of a bunch of, like I was watching an auction of a bunch of old tools.
I love approaching a town or a city from the water because you just get such a different view.
Oh yes, including the guy who mooned us.
Oh, I wondered if you'd seen him.
Well, of course I see him. I don't think we got him on video.
No.
But all of a sudden the guy yells, "Oi, look at this!" And it's like, huh? Look up, and it's like, oh, it's a bare butt.
I just saw him pulling his pants off.
But yeah, quite a nice greeting to Boston was that. It's a lovely little town, though. I actually really like Boston. There's the stump, which I walked up 10 times, and my legs are angry at me about that. There's a really nice view from up there. Yeah. The church itself is absolutely lovely. And there's so much in this town of just little...
gems.
Little tiny gems, like little things, like it's worth exploring.
You have to look kind of past the tired and the sad because there's so many empty shops.
Yeah, there's a lot of the tired and sad, and there's a lot of the, kind of charity shops that you find grinding through a lot of the less well-off parts of England. And there's the old, there's the church library that's from St. Botolph's. There's some beautiful architecture. This was such a rich community. Like it had...
I think it was like the biggest town in the country at one point.
It was, yeah. It was huge, and it formed the main port for trade with the Hanseatic League in Belgium and Holland and everything. So you have this enormous amount of wealth flooding into this town, which is why they've got the largest parish church around, basically. Right. You know, like this thing's the size of a cathedral, and it's so well appointed and everything inside. But then it has suffered with a large amount of neglect and lack of funding for a very long time. And so portions of Boston have really kind of hollowed out in terms of the sort of high street economics and stuff. Yeah. But there's so much to see of little things. I quite like Boston. Like it's a very walkable space. Yeah, there's people who are making it work.
Yeah.
And
really.
And the people the lovely ladies at the bottom of the Boston Stump will let you up the stairs several times if you're crazy enough to do it. And they've got really nice sultana scones.
So when we first saw the sluice, so we had the red light, but when they spotted us, Ali at the
Ali at the lock,
got the
he's a really
gates
nice guy. We met him before, and he opened up the locks for us, and we just came straight in.
Because there isn't, I mean, there's these pipes that you can tie to, but there isn't like a landing at all, really.
No. You basically would have to tie to those risers and just wait. That's why you do really just want to arrive on time. And here we're quite close. Like, we've got probably about a 45-minute wait before the tide would have gotten us through. And see, we're passing the outer gates here, and then you can see almost immediately the inner gates, and they're set so that they close so that the V is facing the river. So it's a relatively short lock.
Yeah, like you said, it's 55 and we're 57.
Yeah, but he can get through, I think, like an 80-foot boat or something.
But I wondered how we were going to get there because we tried to go diagonally.
Well, so this is the thing where I could see how we could do it if he could close one gate at a time, which I didn't know because the two at the rear close
the outer
simultaneously.
Gates, yeah. And we're right up at the front here. And also...
Yeah, we're touching at the nose.
I was sat at the front, and if you got the nose in the wrong place, it would hook under.
Yeah, so. Yeah. And I knew that was there. Like, I knew that we had this problem of we didn't want to go up and get the nose bound, so we had to back up enough that there was enough room there.
And we didn't, like, we could have just waited and just gone straight through, but it's a good 2 foot to do it. So here he is closing the first gate.
Yeah, so I've taken the rear over as far as I can to starboard, and then that closes, and then I jog over to the other side to let the other door close. And then with our nose kind of in the V gate, we've got enough room to swing past the V, and that lets us get into a position that we can be raised.
And keep the nose button safe so it's not going to get hooked.
Yeah, and honestly, there was plenty of room. Like, I had 5 or 6 feet at the back.
Oh, you only had one at the front.
It's the swing. Yeah, like, you know, but there was still room, right?
Yeah.
Like there was several feet of room. But so once the nose goes into that center notch, that gives me an idea of how far I can swing.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure. So we're 57 feet, but our nose going straight in. The button on the back cleared with enough room. Like, if I'd been a longer boat and been able to take the button off, I could have swung through.
Done it, yeah. Or we could have just waited.
Yeah, we would have been in there for an extra like half hour. And I was glad this time we didn't have a baby pigeon to deal with, because that's what I found in the water last time and had to get out of the lock was a little baby pigeon.
Was that here?
Yeah.
You got 2 foot here.
Oh, so we had been back up through here. Did we just sail straight through last time?
No.
We did this before.
Yeah, we did this before, but we did it without the lock. So that was when we came from the Black Sluice.
Yeah.
We came up and we went
did
in
it without the lock.
We went through on the level. They didn't have to use the sluices or anything because
That's why I couldn't.
We didn't want to drain the river. But yeah, gave a wave to Ali on the way out. Right now we're looking at the place where what's it called? The Boston Belle, I think it is. The trip boat. That it's like a dinner boat or something. I don't actually know if it does a meal, but anyway, there's like a boat that comes in and we'll go pick up passengers and go up with them and do a little trip.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, it's quite a nice boat.
And then there's this tiny or smallish marina to pass.
And then it's on to the mooring.
Oh, that's the end.
That's the end of the video.
Yeah, so I probably do have a bit of footage of us going into the mooring. So yeah, good trip. Highly recommend. Highly recommend Boston. Yep. So that's the wash crushing, and yeah, I'll do it again.
Yeah. I cannot recommend it enough.